Hello everyone, today we will talk about polymorphism. It is also one of the OOPS principle. So what is polymorphism? It is one of the OOPS principle. It is a process where method shows different or multiple behavior at the same time. At the multiple situation. Showing different behavior at different situation or multiple behavior at multiple situations. So if you think of in a real-time example or a scenario, a person is considered as he plays a different role at a different situations, right? So for example, a person is a father and he is also a son, he is also a brother, he is also an employee. So multiple characters played by a single person but at a different um, situation, right? So what is polymorphism? So if we split the word, poly means many and morphism means a different state or behavior or a forms, altogether different forms. There are basically two different types of polymorphism. One is compile time polymorphism, the second one is runtime polymorphism. What is compile time polymorphism? A method showing different behavior during compilation is known as compile time polymorphism. It is also called as early binding or static binding. And one of the example for compile time polymorphism is method overloading. We will see what is method overloading or how it is achieved in program, but this is one type of polymorphism. As of now, let's go through this notes. Next one is runtime polymorphism. Here what happens? A method showing different behavior during the execution is known as runtime polymorphism. Whereas previous one happens at the compile time, this one happens at the runtime. Different state. Okay, so different situation when it comes different situation during runtime. It is also called as late binding or dynamic binding. We can achieve runtime polymorphism only when there is a inheritance, method overriding and upcasting. Example for this runtime polymorphism is method overriding. So let's see what is method overloading and method overriding. A method, it's basically we are talking about methods. Okay, so all polymorphism is mostly about methods. Okay, in terms of methods. Okay, so method having same name but differ in their arguments in terms of length, in terms of type, in terms of sequence is called as method overloading. I'll show that in the example once I start the programming. Method overloading can be achieved with inheritance also and without inheritance also. Say for example, if I have a class A and class B, and within that class A I have a method test, and method overloading can be done within the same class A as well as class B if I have a inheritance between B and A, right? So simple running example. We'll see the proper one in the next session. Two methods will be treated as overloaded or method overloaded can be achieved when these two mandatory rules are met. What is that mandatory rule? Both methods must have the same method name. Okay, so if I have a class A, within that I have a method test, and overloaded method should also be with the same name as the definition itself says, having the same name but differ in their arguments. That is one mandatory rule. Must have a same method name and must have a different argument list. When we say different argument list, it should be differed in terms of length, type or sequence. What is length? If I have a method test with arguments int a, and other method test, it should be differed in length, int a comma int b, or it should be different also. If the first one is int a, the second one can be, I mean the overloaded can be double b, like that. So that we will see. And if we uh, manage to achieve these two mandatory rules, one is with the method name and second one with the number of arguments, different arguments list, then method may follow, uh, if both the methods follow the above mandatory rules, then they may or may not have different return type. I mean sometimes these comes as a kind of intro questions like true or false, or just like a um, mm, in interview they will have this aptitude questions like what is the output, whether it is true or false, etc. So in that case, just to understand here, so basically for polymorphism, uh, I mean to achieve the method overload, you should follow two rules. First mandatory rule is should have the same method name, should be the same, and different argument list. Once they are achieved, once they match these two conditions, then those two methods, test and the overloaded method test, may or may not have different return type. It is okay to have a two different return types. If I have a void test int a, the second one can be int test double b, that is allowed. It's not mandatory but may or may not have. Okay, second one is it they may or may not have different access specifier, right? Like one can have public, the other one can have default. Okay, like that. They both can throw different exception. So these are very much in detail. That is okay if you are not able to grasp in very much detail, but okay. So basically what is method overloading? Having a same name but differ in their arguments in terms of length, type and sequence is called as method overloading. It can be achieved with or without inheritance, and some of the rules to be followed while achieving the method overload. Same way, what is method overriding? In method overriding, it is about retaining a signature of a method but changing its implementation in subclass is known as method overriding. So if I have a class A and I have a class B, then class B extends class A, and in class A I have a method test and I have some implementation, say this is a test method in class A. Then in subclass, what I need to do here is I need to retain a signature test, which is a signature of the method, but I can change the implementation. So that will happen to be a method overriding. And here are a few rules applies. It can be done only if there is inheritance, and a method declared as a final cannot be overridden. So if there is a method which is declared as a final, then we cannot override it. A method declared as static cannot be overridden but can be redeclared. So these are all some of the rules and conditions to meet overriding. So difference here is this method having the same name but differ in their arguments, and it can be achieved with or without inheritance. But for method overriding, it is having this method with by retaining its signature but changing its implementation in the subclass, and it is done only if there is a inheritance. Okay, so and method overloading is an example for what? Compile type polymorphism, whereas method overriding is an example for runtime polymorphism. Okay, so these two are the examples, and let's see how this is done in program. So let's create new class. Okay, we'll create our custom class or a helper class for our demo purpose. Say for example I have a class called Facebook, okay, in which my intention is to have method called void login. Let's go for a simple one, and wherein I have implemented a simple print statement. This is login method, or a login method using username and password. So I'll also use arguments here. So one is string un, comma, string pw. Okay, next what I'll do is void login. So now also it is already overloaded. They are differ in their arguments because I have two arguments here, string un and string password, whereas this method doesn't have any arguments. This is acceptable. So my intention is to, instead of username and password, let's say long phone number, comma, or what can I say, string. Okay, let's make it string password only. Okay, this is a login method using phone number and password. So see, there is a difference here. Though the number of arguments are 2, this is string, this is longer string. Likewise, if there is a difference, then in terms of anything, in terms of length, in terms of type, say for example this one, in terms of sequence also, okay, if I have another one with string and long, okay, then also it works. But let's make it close related to some real-time scenario. So this is our Facebook class, which has two login method. So this will get invoked whenever we call with arguments strings username and string password, and this will get executed when we have a long phone number and string password. Now let's have one more class fp light extends Facebook. Okay, so let's say for example in some time before we had only Facebook web version, okay, where we can be able to log in with username and password. And now after some time they are bringing up the new Facebook version FB Lite, wherein we can now overload in the um, subclass also, right? If I extend, that's what we saw here, right? Method overloading can be achieved with inheritance or without inheritance also. Void login, and here what type of login here? Let's say int OTP. Okay, then this is a login method using OTP. So what we are trying to do here is, so we have achieved inheritance and we have also achieved method overloading, as we have difference in the arguments of the login method. In the first login method, both arguments are string. In the second login method, one is long and one is of type string and the third one is integer argumented login method. And finally we go to the main class and declare main method, and we can say FB Lite new FB Lite FB dot see three different methods are auto populated. So we'll go one by one with string and username. And what is the username? So let's say FB user FB user here, and what is the password? Password has be like ABC. Okay, and then FB dot login with phone number and this one. So let's mention 9898989898. Still more 98. Okay, so then what is the password here? Here also will say string value XYZ. I think this got some more range, I believe. After 9898 11 11 11. Okay, 11 enough. So let's assume that as a phone number. We could use it for login, and then comes the FB Lite login method. FB dot login OTP. Let's mention OTP is integer, right? So 1 2 3 4. So all three will get executed and display their respective values. So don't think of this the implementation of the login method. What is the code block within the login method? That is for our purpose to understand, but basically understand the login signature here, how they are differ from each other in terms of what. Okay, This is a login method, username, password, phone number and password, and OTP. So that is what we wanted to understand from this. If we go here, method overloading, having same name but differ in their argument by length, type or sequence. By length, or in terms of sequence, or in terms of type, all three can be possible. It can be achieved with inheritance or without inheritance. So we don't need to have this additional subclass as well. This also is valid when we take these two methods. Two methods will be treated as overloaded if both follow the mandatory rules below. Both must have the same name, same method name, 2 or 3. You can have a number of overloaded methods. Login, all three should have a same name, and both must have a different argument list. So if you see, look at the argument list for all three, they are differ. That is the two mandatory rules. Once you achieve that one, there can be other rules may apply, may or may not have those rules. First rule is that may have a different return type. So here the return type is void. It is still valid to have a different return type. I can have int, and then I have to pass the integer return, return an integer. Okay, that is valid. So this type of example program, you will get it in interview and ask for whether this program is a valid example for polymorphism or method overloading. So that is valid. So they both can differ in the return type. Both can have, may or may not have, different access specifier. So now it is default. So it can be public, default, public, private, protected, like that, right? So based on the access specifier, we will have access, but still they can differ in their access specifier. We'll learn about access specifier in the upcoming session, but that is also valid condition, valid rule. May throw different exceptions. So if it throws some different exception, then this also throws different exception. Both are valid. They can differ, they can be same in everything, but if they differ in only once the mandatory two rules are met, and if they differ in throwing the exception, then that also acceptable. So basically, mandatory rule or name and the list of arguments should be different, and then may or may not have conditions like may or may not have a different return type, different access specifier, may throw different exceptions. So this is about method overloading, and let's see what is method overriding. Okay, so let's start with our helper class or custom class. So what is, before we'll head on to it, so let's read out the method overriding one again. What is method overriding? Retaining a signature but changing its implementation in subclass. So what I'll do, this is my main class. So this is class online shopping is my super class, where I will have a method called void shop. let's make it shopping. Then what I'll say, class Flipkart class Flipkart extends online shopping some spelling mistake there, online shopping, and we will override it. How are we going to override it? So retaining the signature, which means same as above in the subclass, and we change the implementation. Though it is a print statement, again I'm trying to do it, but that what it is printing is different, right? So instead of I say shopping, I'll say shopping at Flipkart, okay, within the quote. So basically in superclass shop method I have some other implementation, okay, which is printing shopping, whereas the overridden shop is printing something else, that is shopping at Flipkart. Like that we can have multiple classes and method overriding method. So let's have another class Amazon extends online shopping, and again we will have a same method signature, method shop, and the implementation what we are trying to do here is shopping at Amazon. So basically we have three different implementation of shop method, okay. I mean, one we have at the superclass and two we have in the subclasses. And what we'll do is we'll go to the main class. In the main class declared a main method, and then we will create a object of this classes where we have overridden which is of type what?